Thanks to our study of poetic structure last time, these chefs are ready to cook some dumplings. If they succeed, they'll be able to wake up the sleeping guardians of rhythm and rhyme. But the chefs are still missing one ingredient: poetic inspiration. And that's where we come in. Today, we'll learn a few strategies for creating rhyme and rhythm, then write a poem ourselves using a consistent rhyme scheme and meter. That'll help our chefs get inspired. Let's write some delicious poetry. Last time we learned to identify rhyme scheme and meter in poetry. Now we'll create a poem using rhyme scheme and meter. Let's go over a few strategies for writing with poetic structure. So we know how to identify rhymes, but how do we come up with them in the first place? Well, we could just come up with rhymes in our heads, and that works sometimes. But what about when we can't think of any words that rhyme? In those situations, we can use a handy tool, a rhyming dictionary. A rhyming dictionary is a dictionary where words are grouped based on ending sound. So for instance, if you looked up dog in a rhyming dictionary, you'd find words like jog, fog, hedgehog, and epilogue. Instead of struggling to think of rhyming words yourself, you can use a rhyming dictionary to quickly find many options and get inspired. In your PDF, there's a mini rhyming dictionary with some common vowel sounds. And if you want even more rhyming inspiration, then with an adult's permission, you can also find online rhyming dictionaries or a hard copy of one at your local library. That's a great way to discover rhyming words. But what about creating an entire poem? How do you even get started? Here are two common strategies poets use when writing rhyme. Some poets start out with an idea they want to communicate first, then look for rhyming words that express that idea. Other poets choose rhyming words they like first, then create lines of poetry inspired by those rhymes. I'll demonstrate a quick example of each strategy. Using the first strategy, let's say I have a clear idea about a topic I want to write a poem about. Like, I want to describe a cold, wintry forest at night. I'll write one line. In winter's grasp, the forest, cold and bright. Then I'll find a rhyming word that fits with the topic I'm writing about. Bright rhymes with moonlight. I can then build another line around that word. A crystal world beneath the pale moonlight. On the other hand, using the second strategy, I'll think of a cool word first, like dune. Then I'll find another word I like that rhymes with it, like monsoon. I play around with the rhyming words, imagining how they might connect. I might ask myself, what do these two words have in common? What similar feelings, sensations, or associations come to mind when I think of them? Until I get an idea for my poem. Upon the desert's golden dunes echoes the roar of a distant monsoon. Now take a moment to think about your own creative style. Then, let's brainstorm some rhymes for a poem that will inspire our dumpling chefs. Which strategy we discussed appeals to you more and why? Write your ideas in your PDF. Then, using your preferred strategy, brainstorm a topic and some rhyming ideas for your poem. Pause to complete this, then resume. Whichever you prefer, both strategies are totally valid. It's like making art. Some artists have a clear vision beforehand and use their tools to express that exactly, while others simply pick up the brush, start painting, and see what ideas emerge. Of course, rhyme isn't the only part of poetic structure we'll need to create. Let's talk about writing with meter. As you know, meter refers to the syllable pattern in lines. Unlike rhyme, meter affects the entire line in a poem, not just the end. If you're looking to write a poem where every line has the same meter, here's one way to do it. First, write a line to begin your poem without worrying about meter. Then identify the syllable pattern you used and create more lines or phrases using that meter. Finally, combine them to make a poem. As an example, let's say I'm writing about a dragon. I imagine this dragon has wings that flash like golden flames. And that line, I used a stressed syllable, then an unstressed syllable, and continued that pattern. Then I'll write more lines or phrases using the same meter, like roaring in the darkness, or eyes like emeralds. But what if you realize one of your phrases doesn't quite fit the meter you're using? In that case, try using filler words. These are short, simple, connecting words that can often fit into phrases without changing the meaning. These might include conjunctions like and or but, prepositions like to or in, adverbs like so or there, and so on. The resource page in your PDF provides more examples of these if you want to check them out. Finally, remember that different meters can create different moods. That's one reason we should always read our poems aloud, to make sure our meter is conveying the mood that we want. To show you what I mean, let's listen to 3 poems, each using a different meter. What mood do you associate with each of these meters? Write ideas in your PDF. There once was a pirate named Smee, who sailed the wild blue sea. She sailed beneath the moonlit sky, where stars above the dark waves sigh. Sailor bold, the waves are calling to the sea as night is falling. Pause to finish writing your ideas, then resume. In my opinion, the first meter creates a fun, playful, dance-like feel. The second meter is softer and more thoughtful, and the third meter feels firm and repetitive like a chant. If you like the mood any of these meters create, feel free to use them in your own poem. Now that we've learned some strategies, it's your turn to practice creating meter yourself. First, choose a line you wrote in our rhyming practice, or write a new one. Identify the meter it uses, then write another line using the same meter. Pause to complete this, then resume. All right, we've got our rhyme scheme and meter strategies down, so let's finalize our poem. Plan and write your poem in your PDF using the rhyme and meter strategies you learned. You can include any lines you already planned. Try to write at least 4 lines using a consistent rhyme scheme and meter. Once you're done, read your poem aloud and revise as needed until you're satisfied. Pause now, then resume when your poem is finished. Let's take your poetic inspiration to our chefs and get cooking. Thanks to our well-structured poetry, this little village is back to its former dumpling glory. But we've still got 3 more guardians to awaken. In our next lesson, we'll need to face the music if we want to succeed. Until then, remember, every story is a new horizon. See you next time!
Hey!